Hey guys, how's it going? So we're heading out to the studio to work on a fun little project. I have been working on cleaning out our cupboards and drawers. It's one of my New Year's resolutions because things just get cluttered up so fast. And I thought if I work on it slowly, and I've shared this with you already, but if I work on it slowly, one drawer or one cupboard per day, eventually I'll get on top of things, hopefully. So I was working on it this morning. I was working on my one cupboard for the day, and I ran across this big old light bulb. Isn't this cool? I brought this home from the garden center, I don't even know how many years ago. I tucked it into a cupboard and there it has sat since that day. So I think it's going to be a fun project to work on to gut this light bulb and make it into a terrarium. Now I've done this project before, but it's been probably over a decade ago. I can't even believe I'm at a point in my life where I've done so many projects and it's been so many years that I can say that I've done something over a decade ago. Anyway, it's been a while since I've worked on something like this, so I'm hopeful that it's going to go well. I've never worked on one this big. I've usually just made the terrariums out of standard size light bulbs, so this should be an interesting project. I'm hoping to put some succulent cuttings and such in here. Okay, so we are going to fashion some sort of stand. I'll probably just nest it in some sand, like in a container today, because this is how I want it to sit. But I'm thinking if we create some kind of a wood stand that's like half moon shaped to rest the light bulb on, but flat on the bottom to sit on the table, that would be perfect. There's a lot of stuff in here, a lot more than a standard size light bulb. This is a Sylvania 400 watt, I don't know if it's focusing on that or not, 400 watt metal arc M59R MS400/HOR. That's what kind of light bulb it is. I did try to Google it. You can get similar ones still for like in the teens, under $20. Okay, so I've got some tools here, some needle nose pliers. I might need to go get a longer pair. I don't have anything longer than this that's thin enough. A pair of wire cutters and a long, just straight screwdriver here. That's typically what I've used to do this project before, but we're dealing with a lot more inside this bulb than the typical small bulbs. I did already apparently break out the glass. There's usually black glass right up at the top here, and it usually has a little hole right at the top where you can take a pair of, make sure this isn't gonna roll, stay. You can take a pair of these wire cutters and you can just break the glass apart to make your opening. And then there's usually a little something right here that I apparently broke out, and that's as far as I got with this project. So the goal is to get all this stuff out without breaking the light bulb. So I think what I'm gonna do, because this is gonna be a little bit of a tender process and I don't know how long it's gonna take, I'm just gonna set up a camera and we're gonna see if we can get this tackled. Oh, I got my first piece. Well, that's not exactly what you want to have happen. The end broke off right at the pivotal moment where I thought, oh, I gotcha. You're gonna come out easily. We actually Googled to see if there was something dangerous inside this and we're not positive, so I was prepared to go get the respirator if I felt like that was gonna have to break. It took me forever to get this end bent like this because it was straight, and there's no way that straight end's coming out of that little tiny hole right there. So I got it bent, I was starting to pull it out, and that's when it popped off. And I don't even think we captured it. I was sitting here for so long trying out different tools and nothing was happening that I thought, well, we'll just turn off the cameras. And then when I feel like, you know, something's gonna actually happen that's interesting, we'll turn the cameras back on. And that's about when the light bulb broke. So anyway, that's where we're at. And at that moment I thought, well, maybe this project isn't meant to be. But we were both, Aaron and I were looking at it and he's like, well, it might be a blessing in disguise. I think it's gonna be easier for you to plant. The opening's bigger. I'm just gonna have to be incredibly careful. So I'm gonna go get a wooden skewer from inside the kitchen, and that's probably what I'm gonna use to kind of mess around with my plants and such and kind of get them positioned. I will be doing some layers in here, kind of a small, I'm gonna use succulents in this, and this is a non-draining container, so it's something you have to be incredibly careful to water. You also don't necessarily want to use a big layer of gravel at the bottom. I've talked about that before in videos, how gravel actually makes it worse for your plants. I'm gonna see if I've got any of that, what's it called? What's that stuff called, Aaron? That white rock. No, remember hydrostones? Yeah. Is it hydrostones?
Yeah, yeah.
hydrostones. I think I might have some. If I don't, I'll just do the smallest layer of gravel at the bottom just for looks, and then we'll do our cactus mix and some cactus and I don't know, maybe miniature fairy garden piece or something. I don't know, but let me show you what I'm gonna attach it to. So we have this rock, which is heavy, and it also has a little natural indent in it. So we're gonna use some silicone. Look at that, like it sits there on its own, even without silicone, but we'll put some silicone on the bottom. You won't see it, but you'll just see this really neat rock and this really neat light bulb and the really neat plants that are in it. And hopefully once we get it all done and the top glued back on, you won't really be able to tell that the whole thing happened. I mean, moral of the story is, you know, be careful when you're working with glass and light bulbs and such. So I'm gonna clean up my work surface and then we're just gonna plant this up and I'll show you what it looks like in the end. Planting is done. I think it turned out really cute. I'm actually thankful in a way that the top broke off because getting all of that stuff through this tiny little hole, I mean, I've done it before with a smaller hole than that, but it can be really difficult. And where it broke, it's not sharp at all. Like I was careful to not hit it, one, because I didn't want to break it further, but I also didn't want to cut myself. But yeah, it's not sharp. So I'm thankful that it happened the way it did. I used a bunch of cuttings. So there's Haworthia in the center, kind of as our centerpiece plant. They're the really strappy looking ones that are, I don't know, they have a very strong structure. Green with the white speckles on the side. You can see the white ghost plants in there, which have kind of a furriness to them. There's some pork and beans sedum in there, which have the little red tips. There's one right up here. There's a couple of crassula, 3 of those actually. And then some cactus cuttings that I made a couple of weeks ago. So the cut end has had a chance to heal, but they haven't started to form roots yet. And all of these, except for the cactus, were fresh cuttings today. So I'm not going to even touch this thing with water for the next week, 10 days or so that those cuttings have a chance to dry, which they will still do in this container. Now, if I lift this up a bit, you can see the layers. I think it turned out really pretty. You can see at the bottom, the little layer of white, which are the hydrostones. I did have some. Let me show you what they look like. I've talked to you about them before. I started experimenting maybe 2-3 years ago. I used these in a terrarium, which I still have, as the bottom layer. And they're made out of recycled glass and they hold on to oxygen and release it. So instead of, having gravel at the bottom, which just the water goes down there and it just pools, this helps kind of dry it up. I mean, my terrariums that I've made with these, since I discovered that this even existed, have thrived and done really well. So that's my bottom layer. And then I kind of did a faux layer of stones. Well, no, I did a moss layer next. So moss layer, which is just around the edges. It doesn't go down to the bottom. So the planting reservoir is only hydrostones and cactus mix. That's it that this stuff is planted in. But around the edge, I did that kind of fake layer of moss and then a fake layer of black stones and then a fake layer of kind of the tan colored stones. So those are just kind of built built up around the sides, kind of holding my soil in the middle. And that helps, just like everything grows really well through that. We don't have a bunch of water pooling and things like that. However, we're going to be very careful with watering anyway with something like this that doesn't drain. As far as how long I expect to get out of an arrangement like this, typically about a year, maybe even longer. Like the terrarium I did with the hydrostones, my first one has been in its container for over 2 years at least, and it's still doing really well. Succulents and cactus kind of sense when they're being planted close together, and they just don't overcrowd. They don't tend to quickly anyway. Eventually they will start to grow and need some elbow room, but typically a year's time is about perfect, and at that point I might need to pop a couple out to afford more room for the others. But if you think about it, you're putting a fresh cutting down in soil. It needs time to dry first, and then I'll introduce a tiny bit of water, and then it takes a couple months for them to start forming roots. And then after that, it takes them a few months in order to have enough roots to even think about starting to grow. And then because they're planted so close together, they just don't. So they're really versatile, I guess, plants in that way, in that you can just and low maintenance, because they just don't take off super fast. So perfect for this kind of an arrangement. Also, it's great because the ending, after we glue it on, will still have an opening, so we shouldn't be dealing with much condensation at all, especially because we're not dealing with plants that want a lot of water. If we had ferns and things like that, which those kinds of terrariums are beautiful, but you usually deal with water buildup on the inside. I do want to go over, before we do the last 2 steps, which is fixing this to our rock and then gluing the top back on, I just want to show you some of the tools I used today. So of course the hydrostones, and then moss, rocks, and cactus mix. But I used this right here. It's a little itty bitty shovel from Gardener Supply. I don't know what it's called, but I think you can order it on their website still. I actually use this a lot when I'm working with my seedlings and seed trays because it's so tiny, it fits down in the cells. So if I've got multiple seedlings in there, I can dig one out really easily without disrupting the other one. But that was handy. I did have to tape it to the end of this long screwdriver at one point when I wanted to get all the stuff at the very end because I couldn't reach that far. I used a couple pairs of needle nose pliers just to, this one went in perfect. See this? And then I could drop things kind of in the place I wanted them to be. I use wooden skewers. These are just for shish kebabs, kitchen skewers. And I taped a Kleenex to the end so I could do some cleaning in the end. And you can use this kind of thing if condensation forms as well. You can just pop something in there and kind of wipe it down. And then of course I used my Felco snips as well. I think that's it for tools. So the last 2 things I need to do is put the light bulb on the stone with a little bit of silicone and glue my top back on. I might have to use a little bit. I've got this painter's tape, which isn't super sticky. So I might put a couple of pieces around the top just to make sure it holds together until it's firmly dry. So let's do that. Oop. Oh my. Oh my, oh my, oh my, oh my, oh my. Why does it keep coming out? I don't know what to do with it. One does not need that much silicone. My word. Okay, that's probably enough right there, don't you think? Okay, now what do I do with this?
Is it still coming out?
Yes.
Well, here, put it in the garbage can.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna put it on there. I'm not sure if the side facing me is kind of the front or if the side facing you is kind of the front. I don't think it really matters, but that's what it looks like from my angle. Oh, I'm so excited about it. Okay, now this part, I almost wonder if I should wait till the silicone's dry. Maybe not. Let's give it a shot. I'm gonna apply it to this side. Get a couple pieces of tape ready just in case. Here we go. Okay, we'll just sit here for the next little bit. Oh, I'm so glad we decided to keep going with this project. As far as how I'm gonna water this, I think I'm gonna have to use a turkey baster, something that's got a longer, more narrow spout. or tip, because typically I water with a large syringe like this, arrangements that are kind of finicky and need a little bit more water control, but there's no getting this big syringe down in there, so I'm gonna have to figure out something different. But I'll probably, like I said, I'll wait a week to 2 weeks or so to water it, let those cut ends dry, and then I will probably give it water every 3 weeks or so, maybe every 4 weeks. It depends on the time of year, but I will just dribble in enough water to get the root system of the plants moistened. You can see to the bottom. You don't want water pooling at the bottom, so if you see that starting to happen, don't keep watering, let it dry out. That's the biggest worry with something like this that doesn't drain. I've had pretty good luck with terrariums and things like that that don't drain, but you just have to be very, very careful and very mindful of your watering. This will want bright light, but you want to be careful with a glassed-in arrangement that you're not putting it in too much sun, because that can act as kind of it intensifies the light and can burn your plants. So a spot that gets lots of bright light but not direct sun is probably going to be the best sort of situation for this. I think we're going to be good. I might pop just like a hand towel or something underneath this, just kind of rest it there in case this part falls off, but I'm not thinking it's going to. I think that turned out just so incredible. I'm so excited about it. And that's pretty much it, you guys, for this project. What a fun thing to do today. And hopefully as I clean out more cupboards, I'll find more cool stuff squirreled away that I forgot that I had. And I hope that it was helpful just hearing the care tips, because, I mean, whether or not you're planting in a light bulb or some other enclosed container, it's the same. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you in the next video. Bye.